Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Today on Expedition Networking, I have return trip for Casey Hastings. She is the Director of Recruiting and Coaching with VIP. She's also a podcast host of the We Are VIP podcast and the Networking Ninja. She's been on here before. We've known each other since I think it was maybe just before the pandemic or when the pandemic had started. We had met, and what I wanted to get Casey to talk about today is she put together this book. What's more than a book? It's a workbook called Awaken Your Potential. And the interesting thing about it is it was all done through networking. So Casey, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much for having me and for giving me this space to share, this my baby, my passion project that I've been working on and how it came to be.
Now, what's Networking Ninja?
So, and I'm kind of embarrassed that I actually said this to you at some point, because I don't know if you remember our first conversation when we were just communicating over LinkedIn and I told you I was known as the Networking Ninja in these parts.
Right.
And then after I met you and I realized how professional you were at networking, I was like, oh, I'm the Networking Ninja with little ends. You get the big ends.
Oh.
But I think the way that I describe my networking ninja is that I am always looking for those opportunities to meet new people. And then once I meet new people, trying to make those connections in my head about how can I connect them to other people. And I think that's where it goes a step further, because a lot of people will meet people, but they don't take the time to make those, careful introductions to other people in their network, which I think are so important.
Yeah. Well, it's like the short little video I showed at the last networking hub for our listeners. It's a call that Casey and I do once a month, and we invite in lots of people and do lots of this of connecting people. So many people are just picking up the candy they want and just ignoring everything else, where you're picking up everything and saying, you know what, I don't need it, but I know you like it. And I think that's really powerful. So.
Oh, I like how you said that, for sure. And, and that's what I tell people too. I just did a podcast with another networker that just wrote a book on it yesterday. And we were talking about this. And I think another differentiator between, the networkers and the power networkers, I never refuse a meeting. I don't care. I mean, we may have to schedule it out a couple of weeks, but if someone thinks I need to meet you, for some reason I do. And I may not know what it is right away. Yeah. And I may not know until I meet the next person that I was supposed to meet you for them. Yeah. So I think that's where this becomes so powerful.
Well, you're right. And it can get out of hand at times, because when you kind of get that reputation, people are connecting you with people. I always kind of want to know, hey, tell me a little bit. Because sometimes somebody will tell me something, just, kind of give me a hint what you're about. Right.
Yeah.
Casey told me I need to talk to you. Well, give me a hint, because, I was talking to somebody the other day and it's like, oh, okay, great. I'm happy to talk to you, but I want to introduce you to this person. I know what it was. Woman's a ghostwriter. I have a friend who wants to write a book. It's like, but she didn't have the discipline to write a book. Hey, Frank, do you know any ghostwriters? Well, I can find one. It was like a day later, this woman comes into my life and it's like, oh, you two need to talk. You can still talk to me if you want, but neither of you need me at this point. So
yes. And isn't that amazing? I love what you just said there about how somebody came to you with a need and you didn't have the resource that they needed at the time, but funny, somehow it dropped in your lap a little bit later.
Yeah. It's
and
weird.
I don't believe that it drops in your lap. I believe that it is you looking, your brain is starting to focus on those opportunities. And so you go find them. And then when you do, you're like, snap.
Well, it's our good friend Lisa Luckett There are no coincidences. That's what she says.
Yes.
There are no coincidences. You're probably right. So, well, let's talk about Awaken Your Potential. This is for audio only. This is a book. This is probably an inch and a half thick. It's a workbook. So if you want to kind of talk about it and just how it all pieced together, you had an idea at one point, and then it's like, okay, now what? And then now what?
Absolutely. And I will tell you, since it is audio only, there are 404 pages in that book.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it is not something for the faint of heart, but I'm not for the faint of heart. And this book was designed for me. I use this book every single day. I use it religiously now that, I'm so excited because let me back up and kind of tell you where all this started. So many years ago, I read a book. A lot of my conversations start like that. I read a book or I listened to a podcast. That book was The Miracle Morning. And that really set me on a path to, it's not that I wasn't successful before, but I was just eking by, I wasn't doing as much as I could. I wasn't reaching my full potential. Mm-hmm. And after reading that and implementing some of those strategies, I started seeing my life transform. And then as I would read more books and then I would implement more strategies into my day and into my life. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. People look at me and they're like, how do you do all that you do? And I'm like, this is how I do it. These are my strategies. I'm giving them to you. Mm-hmm. And you can do it too. Anybody can do what I do. You just have to have the willpower and the self-control to get up in the mornings, not right before you have to go to work. Get up and take time to set your day up for success. So fast forward, I was doing this for many years, adding strategy upon strategy upon strategy. And it got to the point where I was carrying around like 4 or 5 different journals because I would have a journal for mindset. I'd have a journal for goal setting, mm-hmm. And it was ridiculous. Like I literally had to buy a rolling cart so that I could carry all my stuff into the office every day. It was so silly. But anyway, so I was like, there's got to be a journal out there that has everything in one place. And I went out to the market and I scoured and I couldn't find it. And so me, Frank, I'm like, we can do that,
Yeah.
No problem. Yeah. And I had this big idea, which is what I do so many times. And I said, I'm just going to design one. It can't be that hard.
Right.
Well, it's a good thing I thought that it can't be that hard. Because if I knew what I was going to have to do to get it done, I probably would have stopped a long time ago, but I'm so glad I didn't. So very quickly, it has 6 sections in it. It's got mindset, affirmations, efficiency, and that's your habit stacking. That's how you get more stuff done, right? Mm-hmm. Goal setting, productivity. Now that's the bulk of the book. That's your 13 weeks because it's a quarterly book, mm-hmm. Of your daily pages and your weekly reviews. And this is where you're going to check in on your goals. You're going to check in to see how you did throughout the week, doing what you said you were going to do. And even at the end, because there's a hidden section in here on health, there's meal planning. How many of us don't eat right because we get to the end of the day, we're tired, we don't have anything planned, and we're just like, I'm going to McDonald's, Yeah. And that's so unhealthy for us. So, but if you meal plan, you're much more likely to stick to your healthy goals and eat healthy. And I think that's so critical to getting everything done as well, is to eat healthy. But I won't tell you I had nachos today for lunch.
Okay.
It was my cheat day. And
but you're not perfect.
No,
none of this. Yeah, none of this makes us perfect. But you're more aware of things than you would be.
Yes, absolutely. And then the last section in there is finance. And so I think because all of that, it's very holistic, right? It all ties together. So why would we not want all this in one place?
Well, I think there's a lot of crossover between various sorts of things. Mm-hmm. Finance and health, right? You're better off to go to the store and, to meal plan and go to the store, and that ties into your finance. Eating out is very expensive. Although Absolutely. Going shopping is expensive now too, but that's,
whole nother story.
Yeah. Whole nother story, whole nother podcast. So you have this idea, you want to put this all in one book.
Yes.
What were the steps? Yeah.
It started with a lot of brainstorming. And something else I learned along this journey was outsource what you don't know how to do. You don't have to learn how to do it. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And that's something that I've always been kind of hard on myself about is like, I should know how to do this. I shouldn't have to depend on anybody else. And so I've really learned that it is okay to lean on the strength of others. And so I started off this is crazy. I got a whiteboard and I started designing the pages. And then I would take a picture of it. And then I would give it to my boyfriend and I would say, map this out, make it pretty so somebody else can interpret it. And so that's how we started the process. And then I started looking for designers, because at first I went out to the, I can't even remember what it is. It's someplace you can go and you get contract graphic designers real cheap.
Like Fiverr.
What is it? Yes, that's
Fiverr.
What it was.
Yeah.
Horrible experience there.
Yeah.
And so finally I landed on a designer. It was actually my designer that did my website, my graphic designer. I didn't even know she could do this, but I just kept talking about it to everybody I could, and so finally I found her. But I will tell you the bulk, every single resource that I have needed for, minus my lawyer, for this book has come through networking, and the majority of it through the group that you started, the Networking Hub. And I can tell you some crazy stories that have come out of it, and it's not directly, right? So here is one example of how. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a podcast for crazy stories, so I want to hear them. Yeah. Or whatever you want to share.
Yeah. Okay. So you remember Nick Capozzi?
I do. Yeah.
And he was doing all these crazy videos, right? We met him in the hub and, we got to be friends. All of us are friends. And so he's posting all these crazy videos, right, on sales. And I loved him. So I was always commenting and reading everybody else's comments. Well, one day I see on there that one of the girls that used to work in my studio where I record my podcast commented on his stuff. Now we're in Dallas. He's in Phoenix. Our networking hub is virtual. I'm like, Anna, how do you know Nick? And she goes, I just accidentally tripped across his content one day and I thought it was great. So I started following him and I was like, we should catch up, because it had been about a year since we talked.
Yeah.
So we're talking and we're talking and we're talking. Okay. So this is a networking hub,
right?
Track it, right? So we get to the end of our conversations and she goes, how can I help you? And I said, I'm really looking for a graphic designer to do some illustrations for me. And I need them to be kind of woo-woo. I need them to have some sense, because I really want to build some energy and some spiritualness into this, this book that I'm doing. And she goes, my best friend does that. And she is in Santa Fe. So this is all because, we're tracking these connections, right? Same thing with my printer. At first I thought my only option was to print in China. And then also even printing, most printers would not do anything less than a run of 1,000, right?
Right.
And as I now know.
Well, to explain to the listeners, this is a 404 page book, but it's spiral bound. It's not perfect bound. It opens flat, which is a great thing if, for a journal. So, so it's not unique in that way.
And that was very important to me too.
Yeah, it is unique in that way, I should say.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was looking and I was getting really stressed because, as you said, this is not a cheap thing to print. This is not like your average book, because it's hard covered, it's coil bound, very good quality coil. It's got a pocket in the back. It's got tabs for each of the sections. So it's a pretty expensive print. And we didn't want to have to print 1,000 our first run because we knew there were going to be mistakes, right?
Sure.
And so, again, I'm just putting the word out every time we go into our breakout rooms. People are like, how can I help you? I'm like, I need a printer. I need a printer. I need a printer. And I got introduced to somebody who introduced me to somebody else, because both of us were in the recruiting industry. But turns out she's retired from recruiting and now she's helping her husband, who has a print shop.
Oh.
And they agreed to do a print of 100.
Oh, wow.
Yes. They've been very instrumental. So, I could go on and on about, my copyright came through the networking, my lawyer for that. It's just everything I've needed. My distribution person, David Broiler, he's came through the hub. So I don't think I could have got this done without you guys.
Well, I think this is true of everybody. It's just, we all have to tap into our network and do the things that, ask for the things we need, and just be patient. Just be totally patient with it.
That's a really good thing too. What you just said is being patient for it, because, and I always say, I'm going to throw it out to the universe, which means I'm going to talk about it to everybody I meet. Um, and that was one thing, like when I was looking for my graphic designer, I was talking to one of my mentors and he's like, Casey, you just need to put it out there. You know what to do. And I'm like, you're right. I've got to start asking people. And from that point where he told me to do that, it was 1 month to find her.
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of inspiring to me. It is inspiring to me because there are things that in my heart I want to do. And it's like, oh, I don't want to tell people because they'll think I'm stupid.
Exactly.
It's so big. It's such a big thing. My dream is so big. They'll laugh at it. And the reality is, Denzel Washington has a meme floating around. Somebody uses him on Facebook, and it basically says, the people who criticize you are the people who are doing less than you, right? And the people who are doing as much or more are really the supportive ones.
Yes.
And so I just need to say, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. And the people who laugh at me, they're doing less than me. My kids laugh at me. Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're the ones doing less because, like you say, they get up at, they have to be to work in 45 minutes and they get up at an hour before, or it takes them 45 minutes to get to work. And so they're going to get out of bed an hour before work because, 15 minutes to hop in the shower, get changed, get get dressed and go.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that was another thing that I've really learned throughout this journey, just kind of like what you said, is you can't worry about what other people think about you. You have to do what's in your heart, or those big projects that you were tasked with doing when you came here aren't going to get done. You cannot worry about what other people think. And when I first started doing the podcast, which was about 3 years ago, can you believe that?
Yeah.
That there was a person that worked at a former company that I used to work at. And I mean, this person was just brutal online to me. And I mean, it was just the comments and the insults. And I finally realized, and at first I was like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. Maybe I'm not good at this, And then I realized I am good at it. And some people just can't stand to see you succeed, right?
Yeah.
They're like the crabs in the pot, the ones that are trying to crawl out on top of all the other ones, right?
Yeah.
But if you just stand tall and be authentic, you really don't need to worry about what other people think.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, you tap into your network for support, right?
Yes.
I think that's a huge thing. And that's, that's what I love about the networking hub. You come in there and there are people who've been where you're at, or they're behind you, and just, you realize that, okay, if they're still going, I should still be going.
Well, and that's another thing that's come out of the networking hub is just the amount of, because we've got a lot of podcasters, we've got a lot of authors, just a lot of great people that are there. And the people that show up to the hub are there for one reason, because they've got big hearts and they want to give. And I love that we have a rule that you can't just give, you have to have an ask.
Yeah.
Because that allows everybody to participate and get to feel fulfilled. But another thing, just like this, so promoting the journal, getting on the podcast with you, that's going to help. I've been on several other people's podcasts promoting the journal, or just promoting what I do in general.
Right.
It's been amazing.
Well, as you talk, I'm taking notes here because there's other people I need to connect you with and connect. I need to connect Muhammad with somebody. I need you to connect somebody with a guy who's got a podcast who basically came to me and said, hey, I need guests, which I don't know where you're at. I'm always looking for good guests, but I'm not overrun with people that I've never been desperate, right? I've always had so it's not like, hey, geez, I only got 3. I always have 10,
Yes.
So, well, good.
Yeah, we're very fortunate too. But and again, when I first started the podcast, Frank, you were the one that introduced me to most of I think you probably about 50% of the time, because I always ask the question, how do we get connected? You get a shout out.
Oh, there you go. Well, you get it. I want to talk about the journal and how people can get it and so on and so forth, and what else you're doing with it. But I want to wrap up this little portion of this by saying you have every right to have capital N's in your ninja.
Aw.
Every right.
Thank you.
Because I talk to people and well, I was talking to Lisa Luckett last night. She was raving about you as being a connector, and that, hey, there are some people who are really genuine, and you and Michelle Murder and you are. And I think it's for me, it's a blessing. It's so anyhow, shifting
Well, thank
gears.
you.
Awaken Your Potential. Where can people get it? Is it, David Brawler's helping you with distribution? Is it on Amazon? Is it?
So it's not yet.
Okay.
We anticipate, if we have no other, another thing I'm having to give myself a lot of grace with is setting new deadlines. But we anticipate that it'll be available the end of June.
Okay.
And it will be available on Amazon. We're working on getting it in Barnes and Noble. And of course, it'll be available on my website, which is just my name, CaseyHaston.com.
Okay. Well, I'll put CaseyHaston.com in the show notes. This won't come out, this episode. I'm about 8 weeks out. So this will come out July. Good. So it will be probably on Amazon there, unless you give yourself more grace on the.
I don't want any more grace. I want it to get out.
I know, but it's, what people don't understand, you do now, is that writing a book is about a third of the effort.
Oh my goodness, that is so true.
The other part, the biggest part of the effort is all the other stuff. What's it look like? The layout, the paper, all those other things, the ISBN number, all those,
yes,
a million little things that you don't think about.
Yes.
That you need to tap into. What other things are you doing with the book? Are there going to be coaching that goes with this, programs?
Absolutely. That's in the works, to have a whole coaching program around it. Right now, I'm doing, like, if I sell, and I have sold some of the betas to companies. If I'm selling, like, say they buy 10, then I will go in and train their staff on how to use it, because I think that's just as important. There will be instructional videos up on my website. It's kind of like chicken or the egg, right? Do I do the instructional videos before I get the final, or do I want to wait for the final book to do the instructional videos, but then they're already out for sale? So, it's logistics of all that, but there will be instructional videos out there that will be free along with it. But then I'm going to do programs that are going to take a way deeper dive into how to really use this and maximize all these strategies so that you can accomplish your goals. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, you are great. You are a capital N ninja, networking ninja. I appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you so much for having me back, Frank. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.